Hey everyone, my name's Mitchell and I'll be going over the KSA Q&A, Life After College, and I'll be talking about the IT industry and computer science as a whole and just life in general after college. So, first question, what did you study in college and were you able to apply anything you learned in the courses you took? Um, so I definitely apply things that I learned during college basically every day of my job. I'm not sure how much of the norm that is. I think in the IT industry, it's a lot more likely than most for you to apply what you learn um, during college, just because there tends to be so much technical knowledge in the field. That being said, there are obviously a lot of careers where that's not necessarily the case, even with IT, like especially if you majored in something more generic, like every college has a different name for it, but the various like IT degrees that are more focused on things like networking, and then you might get a more computer science, quote unquote, job that's more focused on just coding and programming every day. Or you could do the opposite, right? Like you could major in computer science and do something that's more generic with things like networking or cybersecurity, where you won't be doing much of any coding. That just kind of depends on the roles that you go for. And I think that there's a lot of wiggle room in the industry um, to take whatever it is that you want. I mean, the degree doesn't matter as much as just having one, if that makes sense. Like, I think the majority of jobs are interested in you having some kind of IT, math, computer science, etc. kind of degree. And then from there, they care more about whatever skills you might have or whether you're the right person generically for the job rather than what specifically you studied in college. For me, why did I choose this job? What were the steps? So, the job that I'm in now, um, I actually just found online. Basically, I was just Googling various like job websites, like I think Indeed, Monster, and just like random stuff I found off of Google. Um, and I just went through and applied to the ones that looked interesting. And for all of them, I like Googled the company and then like the generic position that they had listed to see if there were reviews online or anything. A couple of the companies I looked at didn't have very good reviews or like had salaries that were like on the lower end. So I either didn't apply for those or didn't like care too much whether or not they got back to me. Networking. So networking didn't really have anything to do with how I got my current role, but I was able to get one of my friends a job working in the same team and same position, which is cool, especially because he had a 2 year degree, not a 4 year degree. And getting in is a lot harder once, if you have that, like, once you're in the industry and you have like a couple of years of experience, maybe no one really cares that much, but that first initial step, networking helps a lot, especially if you have either not a full 4 year degree or you have a 4 year degree in something that might be considered like less relevant, like um, maybe a science, like a biology major or something, and you want to get into IT. Networking helps a lot for stuff like that. Um, that being said, when I got my internship in college, networking definitely had some role to play in that just because I, uh, my parents' next door neighbor worked at the company. And when he heard that I was a computer science major, he told me if I applied at his company for an internship that I could put him down as a recommendation. So I did that. Networking is definitely great. I would say it's like nice to have, um, but not necessarily like networking isn't usually in the IT industry going to get you a job most of the time. Networking will get you like a foot in the door. So, for example, when um, I helped my friend get a job where I work currently, I basically was able to ensure that he would definitely get an interview. And then what happens after the interview, um, they don't care so much after that for the most part. Like usually they care a lot more about things generic to the position, like what technical skills do they have, what's their work ethic, are they a culture fit is the thing a lot of tech companies are into, just stuff like that. So definitely a nice to have, but not required. Like don't feel like if you don't have networking, you're not going to get a job or something like that. It'll be fine. And if anybody does want, like, if there's anybody in the IT field who is interested in CACI where I work, you can totally just reach out to me. I'm Mitchell Jelley on Facebook. Jelley is how you spell my last name, or you can contact Eric or Arissa or whoever. And I'm more than happy to put in a recommendation for anyone. It really doesn't, like, even if someone doesn't do well or anything, like, I wouldn't feel like I need to know someone too well to put in a recommendation. Like, it doesn't really reflect badly on me or anything. Like, it's fine. Um, so yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you're interested. What resources did you use to help you prepare for your coding interviews? So I think this is a really good question because I think preparation before an interview is like really, really important. Like if you think about how much time and how many years you put into your degree, if you're like me and consider a degree or like the college process, like the majority of the reason you're doing it is to get a job. Um, Putting in that pre-interview effort, like there's a lot of value there. Like I would say like 2 hours of pre-interview prep is worth like, I don't know, point 0.2 on your final GPA, if not more, probably a lot more than that. So like, if I could spend 2 hours in college to have gotten straight A's instead of like a mixture of B's or something like that, I definitely would have done it. And I think you should take a similar look at how you do pre-interview prep. So what resources did I use specifically? I literally just Googled everything. So what I would like highly, highly recommend doing is before any interview, even if it's just like usually when you first get contacted, the very first interview will be with like some person who works in HR who doesn't basically know anything about the job that you're interviewing for, and they're more looking to make sure that you're like a generic fit, like that you recognize all of the buzzwords that were used in the job posting, and that you're not expecting like an exorbitant salary, and that you don't seem like you have like zero social skills. Like you don't need good social skills, you just have to be able to talk to people a non-zero amount. Like I'm definitely not as someone who I would consider skilled with that kind of stuff, but yeah. Um, so I would just heavily, heavily recommend Googling all of the technical words that you see within the job posting. And even if it's just like a very brief overview, like literally you looked up and read the like top paragraph on Wikipedia, make sure you at least have an idea of what all of the words mean, just so that you can talk to them at some level. Like for example, on the job posting that I had, it briefly mentioned like .NET frameworks and some other like words that I had maybe heard but didn't know much about. So I looked up like what exactly .NET is, and came in with a little bit of that. And stuff like that helps a lot. Like you really want to give the impression that you either are already prepared to take this job, or that you have done your own research on your end to get to the point where you can from here have the job. Because especially for entry level positions, most places don't expect you to be able to just walk in and like do the job on day one. A lot of places are going in with the expectation that um, they're hiring a person, not a set of skills, for an entry level role, and you're gonna have to do like a decent amount of learning at the beginning. So they are usually looking to hire the right person. who can grow into the role. Because usually when someone wants to hire an entry-level person, uh, they're kind of expecting to take like a loss on it in the very short term, to have someone who will be there for multiple years, who will provide a lot more long term. So I think that's good to keep in mind. And I think this sub question is really funny. Do you still use Stack Overflow? Definitely. I think everyone from like entry level first down the job to the CTO will be using Stack Overflow or Google or whatever. A big thing that I had to kind of get over, I guess, would be like, uh, for lack of a better word, probably, um, oh my gosh, Intruder Syndrome. Uh, I think that's what it's called. But basically, the concept that you don't feel like you are like deserve to be in your position, or that it's like a fluke that you got there, or something like that. Like you definitely need to get over, um, that feeling, or maybe not necessarily get over it. Like it's fine if you feel that way. I think most people feel that way to a certain extent. But more, you need to not be scared of it. Like everyone Googles things, everyone looks things up on Stack Overflow. I write in the same couple programming languages every day and will still forget random syntax. Like everyone does it, no one cares. Like, don't worry about it. The worst thing you can do is either be scared of it or think that you're too good for it and just like not look things up, or I don't know, try to be someone who memorizes everything. Like, don't try to memorize everything. Like, honestly, that would be one of my biggest IT specific recommendations for someone who's in college is figure out what you absolutely need to know, and like should have memorized, and then don't memorize anything else because you're gonna have like you're gonna be overloaded if you try and do everything. Like, don't memorize random syntax for programming languages. Don't memorize um, random like in college you have like, especially in computer science, I'm not sure as much for some of the other majors, but we had to like memorize lots of sorting algorithms and how they work, for some classes. That kind of stuff is very useful to know once, just to have an idea of like when I tell the language to call a sort function, like what does it do? Like just to have a very generic, overview of how that works. That kind of thing can be useful, but like you I promise you don't have to know how a sorting algorithm works. Like I promise that's been done, and even if it ever does come up, like if for some reason you're writing a sort from scratch, I guarantee you can Google it and someone will just tell you how to do it. Like that kind of stuff you should never memorize. The one thing I would recommend at least memorizing like a little bit about would be the software design patterns if you are in software, development. Um, at least like the basic ones. Those are something that's easy to have like a two-sentence level understanding on, and that can go a long way in any kind of job interview, or even just on the job, like when you're actually working there already. Um, Sorry, I kind of rambled up. Uh, what was the most difficult experience at your job, and how did you overcome it? Um, I would say the most difficult experience at my job is honestly transitioning from, the whole 20 plus years of earlier in life where, you have this kind of loop of, learning stuff and then being assessed for it, where, the obvious example is just normal school. You like have classes, you learn stuff for the classes, you learn stuff for the classes, and then you take tests and everything, and then it doesn't really matter after that unless you have another course which builds on it. Um, Whereas in the industry, and like once you start in a job, it can feel a lot harder to figure out where you stand. Like you're not taking a test and then getting an A or a D or whatever. Like, usually you're just kind of doing your job. And I had a difficult time with figuring out like how good of a job am I doing? Like, am I exceeding expectations? Am I like on the verge of getting fired? Like, stuff like that can, I guess, be hard to figure out even like outside of school. I was used to things like competitive sports or like playing League of Legends solo queue. You like have a rating and it's like absolute, like this is how you're doing. That kind of stuff doesn't happen at a job. So the main thing I would say there is um, just figure out what your goal is, I guess, and then just do what you want to do according to that. So, for example, for me, when I first started at my job, I like really, really wanted to like do well and get promotions, and I did that for a while, and now I'm like a lot more coasting. Like my goal has kind of changed from getting promoted as fast as possible to like doing my job, slightly exceeding expectation, and then like having that be like the amount of work I do. So I think it depends a lot on what exactly you want your goals to be. Like you don't have to super succeed. You don't have to like be the best ever, and you don't have to like do the bare minimum to not get fired. Like just do whatever you want to do. Um, I thought that it would be a lot more like grueling, I think, in college. Like, I kind of had this expectation that it was going to be like a super competitive atmosphere, and I was going to be like fighting other um, IT people for positions. It doesn't really feel like that in the real world, at least for me. Um, that might be more environment specific though. So, yeah, I would just say go into it with know what you're go into it having a good understanding of what it is that you want out of it, just your career in general, I suppose. Um, and don't stress too much about everything else. Like, you're going to be fine, you're going to do well. Um, so, next question is what do you like the most about your job? Um, Actually, I guess that's kind of a good segue into this. I definitely like the most how flexible my current job is. Like, for me, I have like really strong periods of productivity and not productivity. So, for example, I really like having the ability to like take a nap in the middle of the day. And my job is right now 100% remote just because, COVID. But before that, it was like 60% on site, 40% remote. Um, and there's a whole lot of flexibility with it. Like we do a core hours thing from 10 to 3, which basically means you're expected to be able to like attend meetings and be available online, like on Slack or whatever, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And outside of that, you can kind of like fill in the time however you want. So what that means for me is if I am like banging out on my work and everything, I can just work 10 to 3 and not like do the rest of the hours. So then I basically end up working like 25-hour weeks, which is really nice. Um, I would definitely say that's the thing I like most about my job, because I do like being able to like take naps in the middle of the day. Today, for example, I like woke up early and started work early, and then I was like running into a technical issue that was annoying me and not making much progress, so I stopped and like played with my cat and played video games for a little bit and then went back to it and it was like a lot easier after doing that and like taking a little mental refresh. So I would definitely recommend being like being somewhere where you can have that flexibility. I think is really great, at least for me. Um, And that's something to consider. Like, don't just think about your job as like a salary level and that's it. Like, a job has a whole lot of things that go into it, like a compensation package, I guess. And one of the biggest things for me is having that degree of flexibility. And like, I sometimes will work at like midnight because I my brain works better at nighttime and stuff like that. So I would say remember to think about a job holistically. Like, obviously salary is like the main thing that a lot of people will think about, but you should also be factoring in things like what benefits you get, what are the expectations around like hours worked and stuff. um, like, I know a lot of people who the job would say in the title 40 hours, but it's like a known expectation that you're probably working like 50 to 70-hour weeks. um, and it's fine if you want something like that. I definitely don't. But if you do, then you should just go into it, like, go into it knowing what you're gonna get, I suppose. How long after graduation did it take you to get to this career? So, for me, I did an internship in my junior to senior year summer. And during that internship, I like had made the internship. My goal during the internship basically was to get a full-time job there. Just because the company, uh, which is SAS, SAS, if you want to look it up, they're a great place to work as well, but they're based in North Carolina. I really liked it there. So during my internship, I uh, tried to like do a good job basically and talk to my manager about setting up for a job afterwards. And I got a job in a different team, um, basically set up like during that internship. So I had a job before I finished college, like lined up. But that's definitely not like A, the norm, or B, required. Like, I know lots of people, including my sister, who spent like months after they graduated looking for a job. Um, like most things in life, it's person to person. Like, don't worry too much about it. Don't worry about what other people are doing, or, you know, X person has a job at this company that I've heard of and that seems super cool. And like, don't feel bad about that. It's like similar with stuff like Instagram or whatever. Like, people are putting on uh, they're showing like the best parts, right? Like, they show oh, I got a job at Facebook or IBM or something. But they don't tell you like they got like a crappy internship making $8 an hour or something like that. I don't know. So don't worry too much about what other people are doing. Just figure out what it is that you want out of your job and what you want out of your career, and then go for it. Um, that's another like thing that I struggled with a little bit during college, was I like worried a lot about like what's everyone else doing and like what kind of jobs are they all getting. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just do your thing. Um, how many rejections did you have? For me, I didn't, but I would say that sounds like a good thing, but it probably isn't. Like, I think if you're doing the job process like really well, or like if you're getting the most, I guess, out of your job application process, you should have some rejections, because you should be applying to things that seem like outside of your expected ability or role or whatever. Like, don't be afraid to apply at like the really big companies if you want to work at somewhere like a Google or a Facebook, or even something like a role that's not an entry level position. Don't be afraid to apply for all that kind of stuff and get rejected. Like, um, after my initial job, I did do a lot more of that before getting the job I'm at now, and got like a decent amount of rejections, but they were like almost all like, you just don't fit, like you don't have enough like years of experience that we're looking for, whatever. And like, it's fine. Like, you're gonna get rejections probably, and If you do, don't worry about it. Like I said, I didn't have any before my first job, but I think that's because I was like playing it pretty safe. I just wanted to like make sure that I had a job lined up. But don't worry too much about that unless, your personal expectations are there, like if you really want to. Totally up to you. Don't worry too much about like if you're gonna get rejected. Like it's not that bad. Any advice for when applying for the first internship experience? I touched on this earlier with the stuff about like Googling everything. And I would just reiterate again, like literally Google every technical jargon, like buzzword thing you see on a job posting. Even if you think you have like a decent understanding on it, just because you want to be able to like casually talk about it during the interview process. Like I remember in particular, I wanted to know like one random like involved thing that I could bring up casually. So like my job posting was for a software developer role writing in C sharp, uh, as in like C hashtag. um, and so before the interview process, I looked up stuff about C sharp and I saw some random article about like immutability in C sharp and how objects, I think like don't have, I don't even remember exactly, but don't have C sharp doesn't have natural immutability of objects, but in a lot of things like multi-thread programming, you want to like have immutable objects because you don't want your objects to be changing at the start of a process and then some other process like tries to access it. It doesn't even matter. But I just looked up some like random technical tidbit that I threw around in the middle of the interview. I like casually mentioned like, oh, there's a lot of things I learned in college that I like have been able to use in my like at home programming. Like for example, immutability in the C sharp language. Um, just having like a random technical bit to throw, I think goes a long way. So it's a lot of, especially entry level job interviews, a lot of what they're looking for is, um, do you seem like the kind of person who would do well? Like that's pretty much it. Like it's it's very much like them trying to gauge like overall, do you seem like the kind of person who a year from now can do this job? Um, as opposed to like, can you start right now? Do you have like intense background knowledge in this topic already? Like, they don't usually care about stuff like that much. Obviously, everywhere is different, but at least in my experience and from like the people I've talked to and everything, and I've like helped managers hire people at my current role and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would definitely say just have at least a high level understanding of everything on the job posting is really big. What is your typical day like? Do you have any time for yourself? Yeah, I touched on this a little bit before earlier too, but I have a lot of time for myself. I probably work like a maximum of 5 hours a day. Uh, my typical day is I wake up somewhere between like 5 to 10 a.m. depending on when my cat decides it's time to get up. And then I work on and off until around 3, alternating between like an hour of work and then like 30 minutes of like eating food or like watching TV or like hanging out with my girlfriend or something like that, and then going back to work. And then just making sure I catch any meetings or any messages on Slack or anything like that. Uh, do you miss college? Um, I mean, I think, I mean, I certainly miss some parts about college regularly. Um, I think everyone does to a certain extent miss like certain points in their life for whatever reason. Um, College is great, definitely. I think the biggest thing that I would say I miss about college is how easy it is to meet new people. Like, that happens a lot less after college. typically you'll like either have friends that you already knew from earlier, like from college or high school or whatever, that you're still friends with, and then you might, depending on where you work, you might be friends with some of the people there, like actually friends, not just like coworker friends. Um, so I would definitely say I miss like meeting a lot of new people and um, having lots of like small casual friendships and stuff like that. That doesn't happen as much afterwards, or at least isn't as easy. Um, so I'd say I miss it, but like not to an extent that I would say I like pine for it. Like there's definitely a period like about a year after leaving college where I was like really starting to miss it, but I think that's natural, and I more or less got over that over time. Um, do you see where you are at as a long-term position, or did you expect to be this position? I would say kind of a long-term position. Um, I've been here for 2 years at this point. Uh, I'll probably be here at least another year. Um, long term, like 5 to 20 years, I'm basically going to be doing the same kind of career, like writing code and stuff like that, and working in the general IT field. I might transfer to doing something more like cybersecurity related, but that's um, not like that big of a transition. Did I expect to be at this position? Yeah, basically. Honestly, this is more or less what I was expecting. But, you know, treat it as an organic process, I guess. Like, don't worry too much about, where am I going to be X years from now, and how am I going to get there? Like, it's good to have a plan and all of that, but I would definitely say don't be afraid to take things as they come. Like, my girlfriend has Erica. She has changed positions and roles like quite a lot in the last couple of years, and she definitely wouldn't have expected to be where she's at now. But I think that she's glad for it. And then last question: any advice for graduating IT major students? Um, I think I've done lots of like small bits in between rambling of advice during this. I would say uh, in conclusion, I guess, don't worry too much about what other people are doing. Google everything in the job posting before your interview. Um, try and like be relatively casual yet professional during the interview process. Like, um, you want to make sure that you communicate that you are, uh, you know, someone who can be professional, who's not going to be like making weird jokes during the interview or something like that, or like being inappropriate, but at the same time, just be like a casual, like how you would talk to a friend or like a someone that you like know a little bit from a class or something similar to that. Um, just because most of the time people are looking for someone that they enjoy working with, honestly, and that can make a big difference. And then I guess my biggest like third tip would definitely be to try and do at least something outside of like classes and everything before you go for either an internship or your actual like first entry level job. Like I made a random like program to help. I barely even remember it. It was like a random program to help figure out how to like optimize a D&D character or something silly like that in college, and just something like that, like being able to talk about it and like what I did helped a lot. Oh, and I also did a like I helped a charity nearby with like making a database, which was like super easy, but I think that probably helped a decent amount. Just being able to like talk about it, just being able to talk about something you did outside of class, will often make the interviewer feel more like you have an actual interest in your industry and in IT in general, and you aren't just solely looking for like a salary or anything. Even if you are, I mean, I have nothing against that. Sometimes I feel like that too. But just do something. You'll be all right. Don't worry too much about it. Honestly, yeah, that might be my biggest recommendation. Don't worry too much about it. Don't stress too much about how it is you're doing, or what everyone else is doing. Um, just do you, figure out what you want to do, and go from there. All right. I've rambled for long enough now, so thanks for asking me to do this. Again, if anybody wants more information or a recommendation or anything like that, feel free to hit me up on Facebook or whatever. My name is Mitchell Jelley, Mitchelljelley. So cool. Yeah. Thanks, guys.